Good morning. This is Talk Back to Television. I'm here with Cory Trefilleti from Rembrand. Cory, how are you?
I'm good, Rick. How are you?
I'm doing well. So, where are you speaking to us from?
I am in Austin right now at home, and
Okay.
I'm in my office.
And you're in your office, and you really have all those posters in your office.
I have so many more posters that are in portfolios. I'm a big Pearl Jam guy, so I have a lot of posters.
You're one of those types. Okay. So, Cory, tell us a little bit about yourself, but then we want to dig right into Rembrandt and what it is and all like such as that. So, a little bit about you.
Sure. So I've been in the digital advertising and digital marketing space since 1995. Very lucky in that regard, and have had the wonderful benefit of being an agency person, being an entrepreneur, being a consultant. But now I am the chief marketing officer for Rembrandt. As you just mentioned, Rembrand is it's a relatively new company. We're about 2 years old. The team behind Rembrand has actually been working together. We were the same team behind Blue Kai and the Oracle Data Cloud and a company called Voicea, which we sold to Cisco.
Oh,
And so we started Rembrand about 2.5 years ago. And essentially, what we're doing is we're using AI to create virtual product placement in influencer content and CTV content. So we're enabling brands to be integrated into those videos in post-production. And we're also now pioneering some new ways to leverage that content to create more opportunities for syndicating out embedded brands in content to the audiences that already like that content.
okay.
Does that
I
make
want to
sense?
make sure I get this now. You've got a program and it's in the can.
Yep.
So it's recorded. Okay. And I am driving a Ford Mustang, and you could literally put a Chevy Camaro next to me on the road,
Yes, that is definitely something that can be done.
and you could have Chevy obviously pay for that.
Hmm.
And if I was drag racing, you could have Chevy win.
That's probably pushing it a little bit more than we doing right
Okay,
now.
but I'm getting to the point here, and I could, as a viewer, do something to get more information about that car and that model. And so, what do I do as a viewer, and what device do I use to do it?
So it's an interesting question. So you have to think about the fact that what we are doing is we are enabling a product to be inserted into a piece of video content after that content has been shot.
Right?
Now, that is something that we do that is really amazing only because of the fact for us it takes minutes to do it. In the old way of doing product placement or even virtual product placement, you were doing visual effects. Could take weeks, if not months, to be able to do that. So
Okay.
we can do that relatively quickly. Now, the questions you're asking are about the interactivity of that content. So
Huh?
first, you have to
The
think
thing that
about,
actually pays the bills.
yes.
Yeah,
So there's
little
three
stuff
elements,
like that.
right? There's three elements there.
Okay.
First thing is that if the content owner is able to programmatically insert a scene with a virtual product in it, then you can programmatically say that you might see a different car than I see when I watch that same video on the player where it's being aired. So that's the first thing to take into account.
Okay.
The second thing is around asking about interactivity. That fully depends on where it's syndicated to. So in the case of being syndicated to a television station or being syndicated to CTV, you don't really have a lot of clickability inside that video. So really you're focused on the branding components and the awareness and the brand lift elements of that insertion. Now, when you're inserted into the feed or into social or into a digital channel, you can use things like shoppable links, etc., to make portions of that video clickable. But that's once again dependent on the player. What we do is we tend to focus on making sure that that content is hitting the right audience with that virtual product inserted into it. And then we rely on the player wherever that's actually being aired for the interactivity too. So for most part, it's really clickability. It's making sure somebody can click and be delivered to a landing page or something like that. Those elements in a digital environment can be executed, not as much on a CTV environment. It's really a more of a lean back versus a lean forward type of a medium that is very similar to the way it used to be for digital TV versus linear.
Okay. So lean back and lean forward. Actually, what you're saying is in CTV, it's maybe more of a brand play,
Yep.
and on digital, it's more of a transactional play.
It certainly can be. It actually can be. The things that are transactional, we're about to launch those aspects of the program in the next probably 30 to 45 days. So this is a little bit of a sneak peek into where we're going. But to date, what we've mostly focused on are the two biggest metrics being attention and awareness. So what we've been able to see, and we just released a piece of research in coordination with somebody about the initial views of attention as a precursor or a leading indicator to the performance of your campaign. Because if you're able to capture the attention up front, you're more likely to be able to generate downstream metrics of
Sure.
engagement. So that's
Sure.
one thing that we've seen. The other thing is that we've done a number of different studies, brand lift studies, where we're tracking awareness, intent, consideration, and we're seeing across the board is three things. We're seeing an overall pretty dramatic increase of 150% on awareness. We're seeing an increase of about 60% of the users have an intent to buy after being exposed to this. And we're seeing overall that your entire ad campaign performs better. People watch more of your videos, they click on your ads
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
the positive association with the content that you are in, breaks through the clutter. It puts them in a positive mindset when they're looking at your brand. Those are the things that we've seen be really, really exciting, even before we get to the interactivity that we're about to launch.
Okay. Now you're putting something in an episode of, we'll say NCIS, one of the 87,000 episodes that exist. And you need the permission of Paramount
Mhm.
or very possibly the platform who has licensed the show and pushing it forward to insert your stuff. So, do you get the permission from the studio or do you get permission from what I'll use broadly as the broadcaster?
Yeah, so it's another good question. It does depend on the piece of content. That has not been a standardized usage and license discussion across the industry as of yet. You're
Right.
probably very, very familiar with that. That is still being discussed. In many cases, we're talking directly to the studio that created the content in the first place. In some situations, we're talking to the streamers that own the rights to actually go and air that and then monetize it. So there's a little bit of both. One of the reasons we've focused so much in our initial year and a half to 2 years with influencers is because they own all the rights to their content.
Sure. It's
And so
their
that's
stuff.
been yeah, and that's been a great place because no one's been able to monetize them with virtual product placement in the way that we have because you can't fit into their schedules the way that we can. And the fact that they own the content rights. What's beautiful about that audience, which is slightly different than maybe what you're talking about from a professional CTV, is they have such passionate audiences that when you work with them, you have an audience built in completely.
I
And
get
that's a
that.
wonderful thing.
Okay, now we know that influencers are making their way over to quote unquote traditional media.
Yep.
Every time I've ever spoken to anybody on that side of the business, all they say is, "Boy, do I want to be on TV." Why do you want to be TV? Because that's where it is. Now it's a tenth of the audience they have on YouTube, right? But it's TV. But be that as it may, the influencers are making a new show every day, and then the old stuff goes into the library and doesn't get dealt with a whole lot, frankly, as we know. It's all about what's new, what's new, what's new.
Sure.
Where does your interactive, and I'm going to use the word overlay, and that's the wrong word. It's a lot
Yep.
fancier than that. But where does it sit in that content? When it goes back into the library, is it still there?
So another good question. It's almost like I've led the witness here. Um, so in most of the current cases, when we insert the product, it is embedded into that video. So it is there. Now,
Okay.
the content creator, the owner, they have the original version and they have the version with our VPP inserted. So you could
Yep.
actually air both.
Yep.
But in most cases, when you put it up, say on a YouTube, it's there. We are about to launch an entirely new extension of our product, which allows basically any brand to work with a content owner to monetize clips from the library. So what that means, what that's very, very unique is that people who have a library of content can now monetize that in perpetuity repeatedly. And that's something
That's
that no one's done yet.
really important. That's something that's very much missing. I have some friends who are working with creators to say, all right, obviously you want to do the show that you got today, but guess what? You've got 5 years worth of shows, so we're going to make you a linear channel out of all that. And bing
Yep.
it, bing it, bing it, bing it, bing, right? And just go forwards. And you have the ability to let them monetize that with after the fact product placement. All right.
That, and then amplify it across all video channels.
Okay, we're about done. Do you have a specific example that you can share for a product that's done this and kind of how it works?
In terms of this new model of this amplification model,
Yeah, yeah.
that's brand new. Where, like I said, this is what I'm giving you a bit of a teaser into
Okay,
what we're
well,
going to
guess
do.
what? This isn't going to air for a few weeks, and you and I can work about when it actually comes up. So
Yeah.
I can hold this until you give me the date. Can you tell me what it's going to look like?
I can't yet because
Oh
it's
man.
early. I wish I could. I can't tell you yet, but I
Hmm.
can tell you that we've been working with about 2 dozen Fortune 100 brands over the last year and a half.
I bet
All
you
of them,
have.
brands like L'Oreal and
Yep.
Pepsi and P&G and G and these brands, and all of them have shown an interest in wanting to go pursue this. So you'll be seeing a bunch of these things launched very quickly.
Okay. Last thing. You have a piece of produced content. And even the YouTube stuff now is very fabulous studio and camera work, and it looks like TV. Better than what I do, obviously.
Mhm.
But when you do your product placement inside that content, does it feel like to the consumer? Does it feel like that can of Pepsi is actually sitting there on the kitchen counter?
Yeah, because this is where our technology is so interesting. What our technology does is not an overlay. We're not inserting something that was painted
Yep,
onto the
yep,
screen.
yep.
What it actually does is it takes a two-dimensional video that's being delivered. We then take our scene dynamics and reconstruct that into a three-dimensional landscape and insert a three-dimensional object and then reconstitute that as a composite video. And what's really interesting is that the AI takes into account scene dynamics, so lighting, spatial depth, occlusions, and all these other things. So that three-dimensional object is behind my head, in front of that wall.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
got the lighting from my light. It's all those things are factored in. And as moving camera moves around, you'll see it as a three-dimensional object. So it looks like it was there.
Okay. And your website is www.rembrand.com.
That's correct.
And people go to that and see examples of what you just
Yes, there's a
described.
gallery there that you can see a whole bunch of examples. There's a bunch of case studies up there. There's a lot of information too.
Cool, man. All right. Well, guess what? That's exciting stuff. And anybody who finds a new way to monetize content without making me sit through 90 seconds to 120 seconds of advertising is okay in my book. So listen, Cory Trefilleti from Rembrandt, thank you very much for your time. And I have a feeling we're going to talk again.
I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, Rick.
All right. Bye-bye.